Hello, everybody. So we're going to do a recap on the custom user model. So we're just going to go over how we were able to make a custom user model. First thing we're going to look at here is the models. So the first thing we did was we created a custom user model which inherited from the abstract based user and the permission mixin. Now those two classes come from the Django auth models. And so this is where we use the abstract base user, the permission mixing, and the base user manager. After we've imported those files, we decided what fields we want our user class to have. So we decided I want our user class to have a first name, want the users to have a last name, want the users to have an email. And so the first name and last name were represented as char fields, and we're able to set up the maximum length for each and the verbose name. So this is the user readable name that you'd see in front of the form. Next, we wanted to specify the email field, right? So, and there's a special email field. It just requires the max length and also the verbose name. And since this is a user model, we decided I wanted the email field to be unique. So that's why we set this attribute of unique equals to true. Next, we decided to add this four Boolean fields. And these Boolean fields capture things like, is the user active? Is the user an admin? Is the user a super user? Is the user a staff user? So by default, we want every user to be active, such that in the case when someone wants to deactivate their account, we can then change this to false without having to delete that user account. Next, we say, is admin false? Is super user, is staff? We set all that to false. So we don't want just anybody that signs up for this blog page to be an admin user. So an admin user has access to the admin page. Next, we specified the manager object for this user model. And so we call that to be custom user manager. So the manager object brings some additional functionality to the user model. Next, we specify the required fields. Okay, so first name, last name. By default, the password field is going to be a required field, so we didn't need to add it here. Then we specify the username field to be email. So what this does is it makes sure that the username field is the email. Next, we specify what the email field is. Okay. So this function just allows us to state what the string representation for this object is. Right, so this is a built-in function in Python. So whenever you overwrite this in a class, it means this is what's going to be printed when you decide to print the instances of this class. In this function, the get full name just takes the first name and last name, concatenates them together and returns that as a full name, while this get short name function just returns the first name. So this is what we did. Let me expand this a bit. I don't know if you can see everything once. Okay, cool. So this is exactly what we did for the custom user model. Remember that we didn't have to do this. In Django comes with a user model right out the box, so we didn't have to do this, but we did this just so you know how it can be done. The difference between the custom user model that we've made here and the base user model is, well, there are a bunch of differences. Here we have full control of the number of fields we can add, but one other key difference is the Django user model uses the username field. So let's look at the custom user manager. So this custom user manager inherits from the base user manager, And what we just do is we use all the functions in the base user manager class, and we add two other functions there. So we add a create user function and we add a create super user function. Okay. So the create user function just takes in the email, first name, last name, and password. And it verifies that all those fields are not empty. And then it just creates a user object. So based on the email, first name, last name. Now you notice we use a normalized email over here. So what that does, the normalized email, is the normalized email just takes the email provided and makes sure that the domain part of the email, so at Gmail, at Yahoo, at Hotmail, is in lowercase. So it standardizes that part. So that's what the normalized email function does. The set password, you remember here we didn't just put the password as the attribute. So we use the set password method and we supplied the raw password, so the password that was specified in the form. And then we save it to the database and we return the user. This set password, what it does is it hashes the password. So of course when you supply a password, it's usually clear text. It's a text, but we're not going to save that text in plain text in the database. So this set password carries out a hash function on the password and returns the user. Create super user, what this does is it creates a different type of user. So that's a super user. Takes in the email, first name, last name, password. But now the difference is it makes use of the same create user function up here, right? Because you want to try not to repeat yourself. And it takes in the email, password, first name, last name, just as before. The only difference is it changes these attributes of the user model. So it changes is admin, is super user, is staff, all to true. Saves it to the database, returns the user. So next thing we did after creating this class was we went to the settings and we specified the auth user model, right? So you can see this has the name of the app, which is accounts in our case, and the name of the class, which is custom user. So it has both of them and it's specified under the auth user model attributes. Next, we registered the model class under the admin.py, and that's admin.site.register, and we register the model. So even in Django, whenever you create a model, if you want to be able to see that model in the admin page, then you'd want to do this, right? So you'd want to register that model on the admin page. That's what this means. So what we've done now is we've carried out a recap of the method of creating a custom user using the abstract base class. Thank you.